Hello, stream. I'm just going to jump right into it. Boy, it is hard to get started in the afternoon, especially after going for a walk and then taking a really nice shower. But maybe that's the true meaning of sacrifice, you know? Maybe that's what it means to be truly selfless. It is not. Mm. Bum, 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 bum. Hey, evil mustache guy, long time no see. You know, well, I'm happy to be doing a second stream today so that you can come join. All right. So I said I was going to jump right into it, and then I didn't because I got distracted by something on my computer, which is bad, which is the whole reason that I stream. So here we go. Chapter 31. Oh, huge spoilers, evil mustache guy. You probably don't want to listen. I'm reading the book out loud for an edit. You can hang out, but I am definitely, I'm trying to finish reading this book out loud today. And it's book 5 in the series. So, massive spoilers. Chapter 31. The next day they sent Shion back into the mountains to scout Yawamba and see if she could find another route inside. The rest did not wait idly, but moved the camp. They took themselves west across the main road and into the jungle at the mouth of the valley. There was a sort of cleft in the mountains there, where around the turn of a rise in the land, in the land. where behind a rise there was a wide clearing. There they erected their tents once more, though Naya commanded them to light no fires. Oh, all right, evil mustache guy. Shortly after midday, Shion returned with good news. "There is a path," she said. "It runs up the backside of the mountain, and it is perilous. The last part cannot be climbed without Weath, but it will bring us straight to the top of the walls, and from there we can enter the stronghold with ease." "That is our party then," said Lauren. "All but Annis and Uzo, who will stay to guard the camp." "And happily enough," said Uzo. "If you succeed, I confess I will be jealous of the glory you will have earned yourselves. But I have never found anything onerous about guard duty, especially when the alternative is to thrust my head between the very jaws of death." Lauren smirked, but it quickly died. "If we do not succeed, you must return to Ammon as swiftly as you can. Take Annis with you and keep her safe. Her information about the stronghold will be of immense help to Cal." Uzo nodded. "Of course, and I should say, in case I do not get another chance, that I am sorry if I have been coarse with you during the journey. I thought I rode with a young girl who had been raised above her station by fortune alone. I see now that I traveled beside a brave warrior instead." She flushed and shook her head. "No warrior, but only a spy. As luck would have it, however, that is just what was required. They say that even a dull knife is better for cutting than a golden spoon." His teeth flashed in a smile. "They do not say that in this kingdom, but it is true enough." Their meal that night was a somber affair, made more so because they could not cook and had to eat the salted rations from their pack, which had begun to run low. "If we return, you and I should go hunting," Lauren told Chet. It will make our journey to Ammon." "If we return, you and I should go hunting," Lauren told Chet. "It will make our journey to Ammon much easier." Chet looked at her oddly. "You say if. Are you that doubtful we shall come back?" She shook her head at once. "Of course not. I only meant I was not thinking." He looked away and did not answer. Uzo volunteered to stand watch the whole night since he would be able to sleep the next day while the rest of them could not. Lauren was in the midst of readying for bed and wondering how she would be able to sleep when Annis approached her. "Lauren," she said quietly, "might I speak with you?" "Of course. What is it?" Annis looked around the camp, her gaze lingering longest on Jem. "Alone?" Lauren frowned, but she let herself be led off away from the camp. Annis took her out through a cleft in the mountain, into the open jungle, into a small stream that ran south, not far away from the main road. The sun had long passed from sight behind the mountains that loomed over them, but its light still filled the sky. Here in the foothills, they had a clear view of the land to the east, and just near the horizon, Lauren could make out the edges of the mountain's shadow. The glow of sunlight there was like a soft golden blanket being drawn back and away from her, over the edge of the world and out of sight. Together they stood and watched it slowly creeping away until Annis cleared her throat. "Let us sit on the bank of the stream," she said, her tone too airy, too light. "I want to put my feet in the water. I can hardly believe how long it is since last I bathed." "Very well," said Lauren. She was more curious than ever what troubled Annis, but it seemed the girl would not speak of it until she was ready. So they sat together upon the bank beside the stream and pulled off their boots. The water was not too very cold, despite winter. Uzo had told them that it never snowed in Feldamar, and all of the south-flowing rivers carried water from the north, where it remained hot and sunny all year round. "This is a strange land, but I find it very beautiful," said Annis, looking out into the gathering darkness between the trees. "I prefer the birchwood, but I am happy to have seen it," said Lauren. "Together you and I have wandered forests, grasslands, great rivers and jungles, and even the ocean. All that is left now is to visit a desert together." "Mayhap one day we could journey to Idris," said Annis, her eyes all alight. I have heard it is an exotic place. When all of this is over, I should love to go there with you." But then her expression fell, and she looked away. "When all of this is over." "Annis, what is it?" said Lauren. I wish to hear what troubles you, but I must rise before the dawn." "Of course, forgive me." Annis drew a deep breath. "I do not want Jem to go with you. I want you to command him to stay." Lauren's heart sank. "I cannot," she said, "or rather I will not. I have tried it before, with both of you, in fact. You each made it plain how much you hate it. But you are all wandering into danger that could overcome even grown warriors. He and I are both still children, and though he practices his swordplay, he is no fighter. I worry that he will try to use..." "I worry that he will try to join a battle if one should break out, and then something will..." "We both know why you are worried," Annis said, Lauren irritably. "You worry that if he does not return, then you will never have told him how you feel and will never know if he felt the same." "The solution is simple. Speak to him." You are an eloquent girl when you do not let your tongue run away with your mind. You know that I love you as my sister, but frankly I have grown tired of how reluctant you are to even tell him how you feel. Yes, oh beautiful one. You know that I love you as my sister, but frankly I have grown tired of how reluctant you are to even broach the subject with him. To her surprise, Annis's eyes brimmed with tears and she gave a sniff. She bowed her head and turned away. Lauren, mortified, sat up and placed a hand on her back. Annis, I'm sorry, I spoke too harshly. No, you spoke true enough, said Annis, voice trembling. Only, it is not that I am afraid to tell Jem, it is just that I wish I did not have to. Lauren frowned, but as she thought upon it, she understood, and her expression softened. He is never fawned over you the way you have over him. Annis fixed her with a glare, but her brimming tears robbed it of any bite. I do not fawn, but otherwise you are right. He has never looked at me in that way. I keep hoping to see it in his eyes, the way I see it when Chet looks at you. He looked that way from the first moment I met him, and I was there as the two of you fell deeper and deeper into love. It was effortless. Of course it was, you great fool, said Lauren gently. Chet and I have known each other our entire lives. He loved me even before I left the forest, before I met you. Everyone is different. Every love is different. He never told me how he felt, for he never needed to. But he is not Jem, and you are not me. So free yourself from both our misery and speak to him. Annis's eyes shone, but not with tears. You were right, she said, quiet as a prayer. I will. I will tell him. And I will tell him that if he does not return from Uwamba, I will storm in there and drag him out myself. Lauren laughed. Good, then go. The girl shot to her feet, but paused when Lauren remained sitting. It's Alex! It is the harbinger of discord. Discord has come. Discord approaches. I will in a moment, said Lauren, smiling ruefully, but my feet are enjoying the water too much. I wish to relax a little while longer, for I think I shall not have another chance in some time. Anna smiled at her and set off into the trees. Lauren's smile dampened. Oh, I'm not stopping. Can't stop, won't stop. Lauren's face fell the moment the girl's back was turned, and she looked down at her feet as they dangled in the stream. He loved me even before I left the forest. Lauren had said the words without thinking, but why had she not said we loved each other? She loved Chet. She knew that she did, but she had known for some time, in the back of her mind, that it was not the same as his love for her. If it were, she could never have manipulated him so easily on the day she left her home. If it were, she would not think of Naya the way she did now, and the proof of that could be found in Weeth. Weeth and Chet had become fast friends, and Lauren could see how attractive the woman was with her short copper hair and lithe, supple figure. Lauren could remember one or two occasions when Chet's gaze had lingered upon her a moment longer than was proper. Yet never once had Lauren suspected that Chet might harbor any intent towards Weeth beyond friendship. But Chet seemed to have more than an inkling of the connection between Lauren and Naya. It made him jealous, and no matter how Lauren denied it, she knew it was for good reason. Even now, Lauren could not stop thinking of how easy it would be to secretly draw Naya out of the camp. They could be alone for one night, mayhap the last night of both their lives. What had she told Annis? You worry that if he does not return, then you will never have told him how you feel. The same could be said for Lauren herself. Always she had denied what she felt for Naya, no matter how the mystic goaded her, and now she had told Annis to be bold, to act as fear had always prevented her from acting before. Yet she would not do the same, even though she might never have another chance. She remembered her heated argument with Naya just 2 nights before. Again she saw Naya standing just before her, almost pressed against her. When her mind played across it, the memory of the woman's scent flooded her nostrils. A stone lay by Lauren's hand. She picked it up and flung it hard into the water, where it broke the surface with a loud plop. "Darkness take the woman," she muttered, "and darkness take me as well." She drew her feet from the water and pulled her boots on, making her way slowly back to camp. This is Weremage. Have you seen the finalized cover art, Alex? You're not in the Discord super often, so we only got it in the last couple days. Have you seen it? Kappa Pride. You got it. All that Kappa Pride. Chapter 31 done. Oh, you haven't seen it? Oh, I gotta show it to you. Look at this. So good. It's my favorite new cover. It's my new favorite new cover. New favorite of the new covers. Yeah. I love that that's everyone's reaction. Those arms. Fuck, that's my reaction, you know? You know, I mean, you know, right? You know what Kristen says every time she sees those arms, right? Every time she sees that cover. Kristen's quote, which has become the official quote of Weremage. Kristen's official quote, her official description of the cover is sploosh. Chapter 32. Sleep did not come to her for a long time. Chet had rolled over into the... That should start... It's a new chapter, so it should say Lauren. Wow, that's amazing. I live some kind of charmed life because it's been raining its fucking ass off all day. Then I broke for lunch, and it was bright and shining. Like, real bright. The clouds were gone. I went for a walk for like an hour and a half. Came back. Started stream again. It's raining like a motherfucker again. Funny. Sleep did not come to Lauren for a long time. Chet had rolled over into the corner of the tent before she entered, and he did not move as she undressed and crawled beneath their blanket. Over and over she rolled back and forth, trying to get comfortable and drift off. There was a lump beneath the tent, and she kept trying to shift around it to find flat ground again. But at last she had to admit that the lump was only an excuse, and she had slept on far worse terrain during her journeys. "Close your eyes, woman," grumbled Chet. Lauren sighed. "I'm not the only one who cannot sleep, then." He turned over, and in the pale moon's light through the tent she saw his eyes glinting. "Of course I cannot sleep. I am terrified of what tomorrow could bring. Do you not feel the same way?" "I suppose so," she said with a shrug. "But on the other hand, I am somewhat used to that feeling. If that were true, sleep would come easy. Yet I think I understand your meaning. I do not feel as though I should be frightened. I was there for the fall of Northwood, and you and I faced Rogan more than once. I was there when assassins came for the Lord Prince, and I was in the battle on the seat. Yet somehow this feels different." "It is different," said Lauren. "All of those times were a surprise. The danger came from nowhere, and then it ended. This might be the first time you have planned to march into mortal danger." Paddle! The danger came from nowhere, and then it ended. This might be the first time you've planned to march into mortal peril. Chet chuckled. Chuckling Chet, that's what they call him. Nope. No, the bad editor never touched this one. I am just editing. This book has never actually been to Karen. Haha. So I'm doing my final editing pass before I send it to her. Haha. Weremage is my great shame. It's the last book I did wrong. Let's put it that way. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I did 5 books wrong. Then I did 2 books almost correct. No, I did 2 books right. And then although I do them even better now. And then I did this book wrong. And it was my last time. It was like I went back to doing it wrong. And when I did it, I was like, oh, that feels really bad and terrible. I'm never doing that again. Chet snickered. I suppose that is right enough. Lauren felt herself relax at his laugh. She had not heard it in some time. Cautiously, she scooted closer to him, and he did the same, placing his head on her shoulder. She curled her arm around him, fingers idly stroking his arm, and he laid a hand across her stomach. Just in case nobody gets the visual from that, their positions are reversed from our gender norms. I want that to be very clear. He is nestling against her, and she has her arm protectively around him. Just want to say. Doing a book right is like getting it edited by an external editor before you publish. You know what I mean? By a good one. By one who actually knows what they're doing. Cautiously scooted close to him, did the same. The feeling of his skin loosened her taut muscles even more. It felt natural between them again. It felt right. Suddenly the doubt she had had upon the bank of the stream faded away, and they seemed silly in her memory. This was how it had been when she first came to know that she loved him, beneath the boughs of the birchwood, and then when their trysts began upon the seat. I am doing tryst correct, right? I know I've looked this up before, but... yeah, like when in doubt, just look it up. Just make sure you're using the right word. No matter how many times I look up tryst, I will probably look it up again, you know? This was how it had been when she first came to know that she loved him, beneath the boughs of the birchwood, and then when their trysts began upon the seat. Then she remembered Naya, and the light in the woman's eyes when she looked at Lauren. Comfort fell away, and she felt like a fraud with Chet in her arms. Chet, you have not been wrong about Naya, she said quietly. I know you have suspected her for some time, and I dismissed it, but I should not have. Naya would have me if she could. She has said as much, subtly, and in ways that were less subtle. He was still for a while, and then he pushed himself up on her elbow. We're not switching gender roles that drastically. He was still for a while, and then he pushed himself up on his elbow. In the midst of his silhouette, his eyes searched hers. And? What came of it? Nothing, said Lauren. But then she realized that that was not strictly true. She kissed me. Twice. In Dahab. She could feel him tense. You... Why would you... I did not, said Lauren quickly. She did it without asking. He pushed himself up still farther. What? Lauren, that is only a step away from taking someone against their will, from breaking the High King's harshest law. That is not the way of it, said Lauren. I know how it must sound, but... Do you remember the first time we kissed on the shores of Dorsey just before we sailed for the seat? Of course, he said quietly. That memory will never fade. I did not ask you before I kissed you, said Lauren. Yet you knew, he said. You knew I loved you. How? You had never said the words, nor had I. We had never spoken of it at all. And when we began to... That is, when we became... She flushed and wondered if the moon's light would reveal it. Even when we did more than kiss, we did not speak of it then. You told me you loved me for the first time just before we left the seat. We had shared a bed for weeks before then. He thought about that for a moment, but then he shook his head. I do not understand, Lauren. You knew my desires and I knew yours. And so the only way I can think that what Naya did was right is if she also knew your desires and she was right. And so the only way I can think that what Naya did was no crime is if she also knew your desires and she was right. When in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout. No overreaction or anything? Wait, who's overreacting or who's not overreacting? I'm confused. And so the only way I can think that what Naya did was no crime is if she also knew your desires and she was right. She stared up at him. Shame burned in her breast, but she did not look away. I see, he said quietly. He began to turn away to roll towards his side of the tent again. Stop, Chet, said Lauren, pulling him back. I do not want to be with Naya. You just said otherwise. I want to be here with you. That is not an answer. That is not a question. Oh yeah. No, it's what he's trying to, and why I deleted it. What he's trying to say is that, like, kissing someone against their will is you know, not as bad, but it is like, it's just a couple steps down from rape, which rape is like unquestioning instant death penalty. That is the High King's harshest law. And that's what he's trying to say. Like, I was trying to clarify that for the reader, but saying like that means death seemed to imply that like kissing it like means death, which it doesn't. So like that yeah, it's, this was, I've edited this scene, and I've edited every scene like this. Every scene in this subplot I've edited more than like the entire rest of the book, basically. Stop, Chet. I do not want, as she said, Lauren, pulling him back. I do not want to be with Naya. You just said otherwise, so what is the truth? The truth is that I am here with you. That is not an answer. Yes, I would lay with Naya if it were not for you. It thrilled her to say it out loud. Her skin rose to goose flesh at the words, and she grew quick of breath. But then she raised a hand to cup his cheek. But that is something I would enjoy, a momentary pleasure, like drinking a cup of wine. Between such fancies and what I want, what I truly desire, a wide gulf stretches. Much would have to change in this world before I would attempt to leap it. Oh. Oh, gotcha. But that is something I would merely enjoy, a momentary pleasure like drinking a cup of wine. Between such a fancy and what I want, what I truly desire, a wide gulf stretches. Much would have to change in this world before I would attempt to leap it. He did not answer for a moment. Lauren realized she was holding her breath, and slowly she let it out. And then, when he spoke, she heard a small file in his voice. So you do not fancy me, then? She gave a frustrated growl and slapped his arm. Be silent, you idiot. I love you, Chet. I do not desire to be with anyone else. But that does not mean I can promise I will never have... I will not lay with anyone else, but that does not mean I can promise I will never have desires. Can you tell me, in truth, that you have never thought of another? Mayhap Weath? Steam is taunting you with discounts. Yeah, poor Chet. He's just so... He's so much smaller than she is as a person.
Working?
I am working. Hey, baby.
Are you guys making him work? Get back to work. Come on.
Rip ears.
Where's the thing?
Rip headphones. What do you mean? It's right
Rip.
here. It's mostly just Alex here right now. I think.
Hi, Alex. He doesn't know the command where you say get back to work.
She. Alexandra Pedro.
Sorry. Yes, I know, Alex. We're friends on Facebook, actually. Like, actual friends. We're not just connected through Legacy Books.
Cool.
Yeah.
Hey, hey.
Hey, hey, hey.
Hey, hey, hey.
There we go. She does know it. Or was that you?
No, that was her.
Oh, okay. Focus. That's right.
She just saw the Weremage cover for the first time.
Awesome.
Sploosh.
Really? She said the same thing?
No, she didn't say the same thing, but I told her Kristen said that, and she was like, yes.
Yes.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
I gotta go because it's 5 minutes till I have to deliver the books.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Also, too, I submitted to BookBub. It has the wrong cover. And
what does?
The Darkfire cover for the giveaway. And it's not live on Facebook.
You submitted to Goodreads.
Yes. Did I say?
BookBub.
Okay. I submitted to
because
Goodreads.
a cover wouldn't be a problem.
Yes.
For BookBub unless they accepted.
Yeah.
And so for a second there.
Yes. Sorry. I submitted to Goodreads the cover.
Alex. Dem arms. Sploosh.
As a wise woman once said,
sploosh.
Okay. So, question. Is there a way to put it up on Amazon, the new cover?
Hold on one sec. Yeah, seriously. I thought she was like da 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 da. Oh, by the way, we got a BookBub. Da 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 da. Wait, what? All right. Anyone can see that she has a fine figure, said Chet, but there my thoughts remain. I will never lay with her. And I will never lay with Naya, said Lauren. It is not precisely the same, for I feel a way about her that you do not feel towards Weath, but I have chosen love over desire. I hope you know that. I do, he whispered. I only wish that my love was enough for you, that it did not leave you wanting another, or feeling this deep need to pursue the aims of the High King. That is another matter entirely, and you know it. Of course it is, but it comes from the same place in your heart. I believe you when you say you will be true, yet even so, I'm not enough. There is your quest, your mission. Can you not give that up for me as well? No, she said flatly, and you should not ask it of me, not if you love me in truth. He paused to consider that. I understand your sense of duty, he said at last. It is a quality I admire in others as well as yourself. Ugh. It is only that I do not see anything for you beyond this war. If I were in your position, I might do the same as you have done. But always I would dream of a quiet home in the woods where I might spend my days after the war, if indeed it becomes a war at all. Do you want that, Lauren? I do not know. It sounds fine enough, I suppose, but when I think of it, I do not feel the yearning for it that is plain in your voice. That is what I thought, he said, sighing. Is there even a time after the war in your mind? And what do you see there? She sat up, and he rose from his elbow to sit beside her. She took his hands into her own and traced a finger along the back of his palm. I have no easy answer for you. I cannot say what I know you want me to say. How can I know what the distant future holds when I cannot even know what will happen to you and I tomorrow? But right now I love you, and your love for me is dearer than any honor the High King could bestow. Can that be enough, at least for now? He turned his hand over to grasp hers and lifted it to his mouth to kiss her fingers one by one. It can, he murmured. Lauren kissed him, and they lay down again together, still and content. Soon she was asleep, a dreamless sleep more sound than any she had had since leaving Ammon. Oh, shoot. Screen. Haha. Oh, chapter 32 done. Maybe lock them doors and pull them lights down low. Chapter 33. Uzo went about the camp to wake them all. Uzo went about the camp to wake them all before dawn. One by one they came out of their tents and stood stretching in the dawn. Uzo went about the camp to wake them all before dawn. One by one they came out of their tents and stood stretching in the crisp air. Lauren caught herself looking at each of her companions. Often they returned her gaze, but no one spoke a word. They were silent, too, as they readied themselves for the journey. The mystics buckled their swords upon their waists and donned their shirts of chain. Lauren left her bow, Albern's gift, for it would be of little use in the fortress, and only by terrible misfortune would she need it before then. Naya had her sword and a brace of knives at her belt. She caught Lauren staring and winked. Lauren looked hastily away. Annis rose to see them off, though of course she would not be coming with them. I don't want Lauren to look hastily away. I want her to smile and shake her head. She's come to peace. She's come to terms with herself. Lauren smiled. Lauren smiled and shook her head. Annis rose to see them off, though of course she would not be coming with them. Lauren noticed at once that Annis and Jem would hardly look at each other, and each flinched when the other spoke. They kept a wide distance between themselves as well. Lauren groaned inwardly. Whatever Annis had told Jem the night before did not appear to have gone well, but she could waste little thought on that now. She would have to ask what happened after their journey to Dahab, if indeed there was an afterwards in which they could speak with each other. Excuse me. She went to midnight just before they left and stroked the mare's muzzle. You will be safe here, she said. If I do not return, I am sorry, but that only means you will belong to Annis. You like her. Midnight blew a wet snort into Lauren's face, making her laugh. Shion led them from the camp and into the jungle. They paused at the mouth of the valley while she went ahead to search it, making sure no new guards had been posted there since that last they came. She soon returned to wave them on. The sky had only just begun to turn gray. For a long while she led them on the same path they had taken the last time, but when she reached the place where they had seen the guards, she took them in another direction, right instead of left, up the face of the northern ridge rather than the south. Lauren wondered at the change, but she did not speak. Shion had been out all day scouting the path, and the woman was like an elf in the woods, silent and sure. She would not lead them astray. At one point they stopped dead, and Shion gestured them into a crouch. Lauren looked around for the reason, and then she saw two forms moving a little bit below them on the ridge. Hey, what's up, Bodegazilla? They wore the green cloak of Yaren's, and they appeared to be eating. Shion turned to Lauren and leaned close, whispering into her ear. Do we remove them now? Lauren blinked at her. Remove? Naya pressed forwards, her breath hot on Lauren's cheek. We may have to escape at great speed. Every guard we kill on the way in is one we will not have to fight on the way out. No, said Lauren. When are the patrols replaced? Do you know? Shion shook her head. Then we could raise the alarm while we are still inside and not even know it. The family Yaren prides themselves on not killing needlessly. We should endeavor to do the same. Shion glanced over Lauren's shoulder. From the corner of her eye, Lauren saw Naya shrug. Shion turned away without a word and pressed on. The gray had lightened considerably when they reached the base of Yawamba's sudden cliffs. Dawn's approach filled them all with urgency. The route up looked to be a difficult one, but Lauren knew from long experience that climbing up would be much easier than climbing down. Their path began to wind back and forth, and Shion would pause every few moments to check that the rocks gave her another path up. But then they reached the top of the slope, and it turned into a sheer wall at least 30 paces high. "Where do we go from here?" said Lauren. "Up," said Shiyun, arching an eyebrow. "That is why you brought me," Weeth said, smiling. She stepped forwards and pulled off her leather gloves. Her eyes began to glow. "I may not be much of an alchemist, but I am an alchemist." She put forth her hand at about the height of her knee, and her fingers sank into the rock like it was made of water. Soon she had carved a little depression there, and she placed her foot inside it. She made another for the other foot, and then she reached up to create her handholds. Hand over hand and foot over foot she began to climb, creating new handholds each time. "Sky above," whispered Jem. "I would have killed to know a girl like her when I was the best thief in Cabris." "Sky above," whispered Jem. "I would have given much to know a girl like her when I was the best thief in Cabris." Naya snorted. "I will go next," she growled. "I will follow," said Lauren. "Then Jem, Chet, and Shiyun. You can cover our rear best with the bow." Shiyun nodded. Naya was already climbing up just behind Weeth, gripping each handhold almost as soon as the alchemist's foot left it. Lauren came after her as soon as there was room, and soon the whole group was on. We get into heavy spoiler territory, by the way, at this point, so I'm just gonna toss up a big fatty fat spoiler. Lauren came after her as soon as there was room, and soon the whole group was on the cliff face, making their way slowly up like ants ascending the leg of a table. The sun rose at last while they were halfway up, and eastern light poured upon them from the left. Okie dokes. Alex, have you not read this one yet? Sun rose at last while they were halfway up, and eastern light poured upon them from the left. Lauren paused for a moment to look back down. Yuwamba's little valley. Oh man, yeah, you definitely don't want spoilers on this book. This is the big spoilery. This is the biggest spoilery book since Darkfire. The sun rose at last while they were halfway up, and eastern light poured upon them from the left. Lauren paused for a moment to look back down. Yuwamba's little valley was in view, but nothing beyond, for the mountains blocked the landscape beyond. It was the very reason Yuwamba was so well hidden. She could not see any guards from her vantage point. Hey, what's up, Stisher? And she hoped that none looked their way, for surely they could not miss the sight of 5 small figures crawling their way up the light gray stone of the cliff. A wind had begun to blow. Lauren shivered and reached up for the next handhold. Just then, Naya's foot slipped from the wall. She gave a grunt as she slid down, reaching desperately for something to hold on to. With no time to think, Lauren braced her feet and reached up to try and halt Naya's fall. It did little slower, but Naya gripped a handhold in time, stopping with a jolt. Lauren realized suddenly that her hand was on Naya's rear end. We can just say rear. The mystic looked down at her with a savage grin. "Time for that later, Nightblade. We are working." "Get on with it," said Lauren, removing her hand. She looked down towards Chet, trying to send him a silent apology. He rolled his eyes and shook his head. She hoped that meant he was not upset. Looking up again, she realized they had finally neared the top. Weeth was already out of sight over the wall, and Naya was scrambling over as well. They all quickened their pace, Lauren nearly leaping from handhold to handhold, and Jem following so fast that his fingers scraped on her boot more than once. But just before she reached the lip, Lauren heard a muffled cry and the scuffle of leather boots on stone. Too many uffles. We are discovered, she thought. A moment's panic seized her as she wondered if she should keep going. But then she realized Weeth and Naya were in danger, and she lunged up, only to recoil again as a body sailed over her head and fell into the open air. She caught a glance of it, and saw Weeth's pale face, her red hair fluttering, her neck bent at an impossible angle. In silence the mystic fell, and in silence struck the rocks far, far below, too far away to hear the impact. For a moment horror froze them all. Then Lauren vaulted over the top of the wall to land on the rampart just beyond. Naya was there, kneeling over the body of a Yeren guard. The blade of her knife was still buried in the woman's throat. Naya looked up at Lauren, her eyes wide with grief. She came. She surprised us. She did not see her, and the words died in her throat, and Lauren could only stare. Slowly she turned to the top of the wall again, her breath catching in her throat as the others came over one by one and joined her in silence. Rip. Rip and pepperonis. Chapter 34. After a long moment of mourning, Shion broke to quiet. The sun is up. We are far too exposed here. Yes, said Naya. She wiped something, sweat or tears, from her eyes with the back of a hand, while the other wiped her knife clean on the dead guard's cloak. Help me get her out of sight. We have no time to find a hiding place, said... We have no time to find a hiding place, said Shion. She looked at the corpse disdainfully. Throw her over the wall, where she may join Weath in death. Naya nodded, and together the two of them lifted the guard to toss her into the open air. There was a blood stain on the floor, but that could not be helped. Chet and Jem still sat where they had climbed up. Chet stared blankly in the direction Weath had fallen. Chet, whispered Lauren. His head jerked towards her. Come. The boys edged towards her slowly. There was an inner wall opposite the ramparts behind, which Lauren and the others had ducked. There was an inner wall opposite the ramparts behind which Lauren and the others had ducked, and now Shion poked her head over it, looking about. When she crouched again, she spoke to Lauren and Naya. I cannot see very well for the wall block's vision, but I see only another half-dozen Yarans atop the wall. That is a light guard, for I would guess that the wall is many hundreds of paces long. Below us, the courtyard is entirely empty. If we are fortunate, they will not notice this one missing for a long while. We are not fortunate, said Chet harshly. Chet, said Lauren, meeting his gaze. He lasted only a moment before looking away. Go on, Shion. How can you think we are fortunate when Weath is dead, said Chet harshly. Chet, said Lauren, meeting his gaze. He lasted only a moment before looking away. Go on, Shion. But Naya spoke first. We should leave one lookout here, and the rest of us will enter Yawamba. We'll find Damaris and bring her up, then carry her down the way we came. Carry her down the cliff, said Lauren. How can we manage that? I have rope, said Shion, patting a large leather pack that hung at her hip. We can bind her and gag her, and with one on the ground to guide her descent, the rest of us may lower her down. Good enough, said Naya. Chet will remain here while the rest of us... No, said Chet. I will go with Lauren. Naya glared, but Shion nodded in agreement. I will remain. The boy only came to keep her safe, and he is no warrior. He will be useless here if he is discovered. That is why he should not be here at all, snarled Naya. But very well, if we are resigned to this foolishness, then let us carry it out. With Shion remaining behind, Naya led the rest of them down a stairway and into the empty courtyard. Not far from the bottom of the steps was a door. Naya paused there for only a moment, pressing her ear to the wood to listen within. Then she pushed it open and stepped through it, with Lauren only a pace behind her, and Chet and Jem at her heels. They were at the top of yet another staircase landing, except that this one descended to both the left and right. Both directions turned almost immediately, deeper into the mountain. Lauren ran down to the corner of the one on the left and saw that it turned away right almost immediately, away from the other stairway. This one turns to the right, and this one to the left, said Chet, who had gone in the other direction. 2 paths and 2 directions, but which to take? Lauren thought hard. Yawamba was a fortress built from a mountain shaped like an arrowhead. Yes, an arrowhead or the prow of a ship. And on a ship, where did the captain reside? Always their quarters were towards the rear, or in this case, deeper into the mountains. This way, she said. How do you know? Said Chet. It is a guess, but I think it is a good one. We can argue about it if you like. He grimaced, but Naya ran down the steps after Lauren. Listen to her. If she says she knows where to find Damaris, I believe her. She vanished almost at once around the corner and was lost from sight. Chet and Jem ran up to Lauren, and Chet's face was full of concern. Did you see this in your dreams as well? No, said Lauren. It is a guess in truth, and my dreams do not show me the future. They've guided us well enough so far, said Jem. We would not be here without them. They are... She stopped short. Chet's corpse flashed in her mind in Jem's madness. I know nothing of this place. I only think that we will find Damaris in its deepest, darkest hole. Now let us hurry, for Naya has already left us behind. They took the steps 2 at a time until they caught her. She had paused until they caught the mystic. She had paused where the stairs ended, opening into a hallway. Yeah, no comment. They took the steps 2 at a time until they caught the mystic. She had paused where the stairs ended, opening into a hallway that branched left and right while also running straight ahead. Torches lit the place just as they had lit the stairwell. Just as they lit the stairwell. Naya glanced over her shoulder. Nightblade? Straight ahead, said Lauren, and took the lead. The craftsmanship of the fortress was nothing so grand as the High King's palace, and yet in its own way it seemed grander, more powerful. The craftsmanship of the fortress was nothing so opulent as the High King's palace, and yet in its own way it seemed grander, more powerful. There were some pillars and beams that looked as though they had been brought here, but much of it was carved out of the rock of the mountain itself, and they did not appear to have taken much effort to make it beautiful. It was as though whoever built Yawamba had done so long before the decorative refinement that gave birth to the seat, and Underrealm itself. The stronghold had a sense of lurking, of ominous presence and malice, a long-forgotten and long-sleeping threat that only waited for the right time to wake and sweep all its enemies away into the darkness below the world. That menace weighed more heavily on them the deeper they drove. The halls all turned exactly left and right, so that Lauren was able to remember the way she was going easily enough, and led them always west, deeper into the heart of the Great Rocks. But all the while they never saw another soul, nor any sign of them, save for the lit torches on the walls. "Where are they?" growled Naya. She stopped and ducked through the open doorway of some of the rooms as they passed. "There are tables in some of these, and dishes and weapons in others, but where are the people?" "Mayhap they have already heard we were coming," said Jem. "Mayhap they fled. They must have heard I was with you." But even his customary bravado could not withstand the creeping silence, and his smile faltered. "Hush," said Lauren, stopping suddenly. They all froze where they stood. Lauren listened harder, and then she heard it again, the clink of metal on pottery. She turned to the rest of them. "A kitchen?" "Food," said Jem, licking his lips. "Be silent, Jem." "I do not smell anything," said Naya. "I think sound carries farther in this place than scent," said Lauren. "And worse, I cannot tell where the sound came from." "Then what do you propose to do?" "To press on, only be more careful now that we know others are near." They moved slower after that, careful to let each step fall silently, and then at long last they heard a sound. Shuffling footsteps, the sound of soft leather on stone, and moving towards them from the right. Lauren pointed to one of the rooms, and they leapt through the open doorway to hide themselves on either side of it. Lauren risked leaning out slightly to look back into the hall. A young woman in a plain brown dress, her skin as dark as night, walked past them. She carried a broad silver tray in 2 hands, and upon the tray were several platters of food with gold covers. Naya looked at Lauren after the girl passed. "Did you see it?" "I did," said Lauren. "Fancy food for fancy people. Let us follow our little songbird." They waited until she had turned the next corner out of sight and then ran after her. 2 more hallways they followed her until she rounded the final corner and ducked into the first doorway in the hallway there. Peeking around the corner, Lauren saw a guard at the door. She looked to Naya. The mystic pounced, silent as a striking wolf. Her hand caught the guard by the throat, choking his cry of alarm to silence. Her dagger was in her hand, and Lauren's heart leapt, but she only brought the pommel crashing into his temple, and he collapsed. Lauren ran past them both and into the room where the servant stood looking at the door, her eyes wide with alarm. When she saw Lauren, she tried to scream, but Lauren covered her mouth with a hand and seized the tray to keep it from falling. Chet took it from her and set it on the ground while Lauren pressed the girl back into the wall. "Silence! Be silent," said Lauren. "We will not hurt you." But the girl's gaze went over Lauren's shoulder, and she screamed into the hand that kept her quiet. Lauren turned to see that Naya had dragged the guard into the room and, now that he was out of the hallway, was slowly slitting his throat with her hunting knife. "Naya!" cried Lauren in a harsh rasp. The woman glared up at her. "Every one I kill now is one I will not have to fight when I escape. I say that for myself, since it seems plain you will not fight at all." "I will not kill," said Lauren. "Darkness take you, Naya. Get into the hallway and keep watch. Warn us if you hear anyone coming." Naya's nostrils flared, but she stood and did as she was bid. Lauren turned back to the girl and shook her by the shoulder to get her attention. "Where are you taking this food? I am removing my hand so that you may talk. Do not scream." Cautiously she lifted her hand, no more than a finger's breadth, but the girl shook her head. I will tell you nothing. Lauren sighed. Tell us, girl. Do not make this difficult. Who are you? What did you want? What do you want? Why did you kill him? Glancing over her shoulder at the dead guard, Lauren remembered what Uzo had told them in Dahab. The Yarans were family, and none but the family were allowed inside. Doubtless the guard was some cousin of hers. She cursed Naya again in her mind. My companion killed him because she is a madwoman, said Lauren. We are seeking someone. Help us find her, and you will not be harmed. I swear it. But if we take too long in our conversation here, well, my companion will grow impatient, and then she will speak with you herself. Fresh terror filled the girl's eyes. I'm only a servant. I know nothing of the stronghold. I would wager you know enough. Where are all the soldiers stationed? The girl only shook her head. Lauren glanced back over her shoulder. Jem, fetch Naya. No, cried the girl. No, no, please. The soldiers are all in the eastern chambers of the stronghold, far from here. And who resides here? Said Lauren. She looked around, desperate for some escape, but there was none. The wealthier members of the family, the caravan heads and accountants, the higher scions. To whom do you bring this food? The girl's throat bobbed up and down as she swallowed. The lady of the fortress. Is it Damaris? Though the girl did not answer, her eyes grew wider with fear and her skin went a shade paler. It was all the answer Lauren needed. But there's no one in this room, said Lauren. Where is she? How did you mean to bring the food to her? Jem ran up beside them, where there was a small door built into the wall. He turned the latch and opened it outwards into the room. This way, I would wager. Chet pressed in behind him and Lauren leaned over to look. There was a small wooden platform there, affixed to a rope that ran up and down in the pitch blackness beyond. What is it? Said Chet. I think. Jem leaned in and pulled on one of the ropes. The wooden platform moved down slightly. Yes, I think this is some device that brings things up and down in the fortress. If the kitchens are up on this level, this would be how they send food down to those on the lower levels. She is below us then, said Lauren, focusing on the girl once more. How many floors down? Please no, said the girl. You cannot reach her. She is well guarded, and if it is known that I helped you... They heard footsteps at the door, and Naya reappeared in it. What is taking so long? She snarled. Will she not speak? Give her to me. Lauren turned back to the girl and raised her brows. 15, squeaked the girl. Damaris is 15 floors down. You have done well, said Lauren. Then she shoved the girl back so that her head slammed into the wall. She fainted at once, and Lauren caught her before she reached the floor. Chapter 34 done! Yeah. I need to take a quick break just to walk around. Yeah, like, innocent serving girl in the fortress definitely was not expecting her day to be that bad. Ugh. Need to do one quick thing. Bum, 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 bum. What? All right. Quick break. I'll be back in about 5 minutes. Opa, we're back. Yeah, still here, Bodegazilla. Just needed to take a break. Afternoon streams are a lot harder. No, but I'm trying to I'm trying to have a more normal sleep schedule. So I'm trying to have 2 cups of coffee in the morning and that's it. So used to be if I worked in the morning all the way through and worked in the afternoon as well, I would make myself more coffee in the afternoon, and then if I stayed up late, I stayed up late, and I was always staying up late, so who cared? But but without drinking coffee in the afternoon stream is hard. In a very first worldly problem kind of way, obviously. Ugh. Yes, 2 cups of coffee. Strange beast, right? Chapter 35. I will go first, said Jem. Let me, said Naya. If there are foes on the other side, you will be of little use. I am smaller, and if there are foes, I will see them first, countered Jem. I will be able to tell you so that the situation may be resolved with stealth rather than alerting the whole kingdom to our presence. Lauren looked up from where she and Chet were tying up the servant girl in the corner using the cloak of the slain guard. Let Jem go first. He is craftier than any of us. With her dagger, Lauren cut a strip of cloth from the girl's dress and shoved it in her mouth and then used another strip to tie it in place. I do not doubt it, sneered Naya, glaring down at the boy. Oh, spoiler. Everything is spoilers at this point, just as a reminder. Jem slipped into the dark hole in the wall and crawled over the edge of the wooden platform, clinging to the rope in the darkness. I cannot see how far it goes down, he said, but the rope is... How far down it goes, right? I cannot see how far down it goes, he said, but the rope is sturdy, and if you hang on to it, there are many rough patches on the wall where you may place your feet. It will not be too difficult to climb. Still, you may wish to rid yourself of the chain shirt, Naya, said Lauren. Doubtless that will only make things harder. Naya arched an eyebrow. I will keep it, though your concern is touching. I think it will come to fighting before we leave here, and I would not be defenseless when it does. Lauren arched an eyebrow. Suit yourself, then. One by one, they entered the darkness behind Jem. First Lauren, and then Naya, and finally Chet. The rock pressed in close on all sides, with a few handbreadths to either side of them. The rock pressed in close, with only a few handbreadths to either side of them. Jem had said the climb was not difficult, but that was because his tiny body fit far more easily than any of theirs. The air grew stuffy and hard to breathe, and it was worse the farther down they went, so that Lauren guessed the only source of fresh air must be above them. Sky above, it stinks here, said Chet. Can you imagine how terrified Annis would be if she had come with us, said Jem. He snickered, but then went silent. Still, I wish she had. Still you're prattling, said Naya. There could be foes less than a pace away from us even now. Indeed, they passed several more doors like the one they had used to enter the shaft. There did not appear to be one on every floor, but almost, and from the edges of each came thin shafts of light. It was the only illumination they had, and barely enough for them to see by. Lauren wondered what would happen if another servant came to use the dumbwaiter and pulled on the rope. Would they all go plummeting into the darkness to land in whatever hole lay below them? Go faster, Jem, she hissed. She guessed that they had passed 7 floors now, but then as they kept going the air grew sweeter. They could breathe more easily and she felt a draft upon her arms, and far, far below them there came the sound of rushing water. The stream, thought Lauren. It must be the same stream that ran out to skip beside the main road. It ran out of the mountain itself, of course. What better way to dispose of the stronghold's waste? No doubt there was some station upriver where they could collect fresh water, which would let Yowamba withstand a siege for almost any length of time. But by using this shaft and others like it, they could throw their refuse, their unused food, and even the contents of their chamber pots. But Jem had stopped, and she almost stepped on him as their thoughts wandered. Not refuse, but rubbish, because refuse can mean feces. Rubbish. Their unused food, and even the contents of their chamber pots. But Jem had stopped, and she almost stepped on him as her thoughts wandered. "15," whispered the boy. "This is where she meant to send the food." He paused there a moment, listening. "I do not hear anything on the other side." "Then give it a push," said Lauren. He tried, but in the dim light she saw him shake his head. "It is shut." "Climb down a bit farther," she said. "Let me try." Jem slid further down the rope and she took his place at the door. From her belt she drew her dagger and slipped it into the crack between the hatch and the wall. She probed up and down, searching for the latch. At last she found it and lifted it, and the hatch jerked open. It sounded loud as a thunderclap after the long silence, and they all froze. But there came no sound from either side. She stuck her head through the opening. The room beyond was another servant's room, and it was empty. Carefully, silently, she slipped out. Naya followed her quickly, and then came the boy, and then Chet. "The air is even worse here than it was in the shaft," said Chet. "I think I might choke." "We can but hope," said Naya. Quickly she stole to the room's door and looked both ways down the hallway outside. No one, but I hear sounds from that direction. Lauren went to the door and heard them too. Voices, far enough to be only a low murmur, but still close enough to be heard. They were to the left, which was west, and deeper into the mountain. "It seems the right direction," she whispered. "Let us go, but be cautious." The hallway now was more natural rock than cut stone, and every surface was rough to the touch, so that they could not brush too hard against the walls without scraping their skin. It was harder to muffle their footfalls, and so they had to move even slower than they had before. There was a channel cut into the rock below them, and an iron gate was laid over it to sit flush with the floor. In the channel there flowed a thin stream of water, hardly enough to dip a hand in, though there was room for much more. Another strange feature of the stronghold, though this time Lauren did not know what might be its purpose. At last the hall turned and opened into a wide room beyond, with a domed ceiling carved in great designs. Lauren caught a glimpse of horses and men cut into the stone, but her attention quickly went to the soldiers in the room instead. They dove behind the edges of the room's doorway before they could be seen. There were not many... There were not many soldiers, mayhap only 24, but that was far more than they had any hope of taking in a fight. There was a long row of tables against either wall, and there the soldiers sat, eating a meal. All of them wore shirts of chain and greaves of iron plate, and they all had helmets, though they had removed those to eat. Lauren took a second glance and cursed. The helmets were open-faced. Naya had spotted it too. "No disguises this time," she whispered. "What shall we do?" said Lauren. "Turn back?" said Chet, but even he did not sound hopeful that the idea would be accepted. "There," said Jem. "Look." He pointed to the floor. The same channel that had run beside them ran through the center of the mess hall and out the other side, and it was far removed from the tables on either side. Yeah, that's Chet for you. By the way, Alex, I didn't ask. I forgot to ask or show you. But look what came in the mail today. How gorgeous is that? Eh? 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 Look at that spine. Boom. Almost 700 pages of book, and then another 50 pages of addenda and extra materials. Anyway, just wanted to share that with you. I know, right? Such a big fan of that book. Hold on a sec, I'm getting a phone call from the most gorgeous woman in the world. So I am going to have to go in like 8 minutes. We're going to go out to dinner tonight. Special treat. Haha, Alex. I am a little bit biased when it comes to who's the most beautiful woman in the world. But at least I will admit my bias. He pointed to the floor. The same channel that had run beside them ran through the center of the mess hall and out the other side, and it was far removed from the tables where the soldiers sat. It will be a tight fit, whispered Chet. And filthy, said Naya. Mayhap we can find a way to sneak around. Oh, it's not for any reason. You know, just a special treat just because every once in a while people should have special treats. It'll be a tight fit, whispered Chet. And filthy, said Naya. Mayhap we can find a way to sneak around. When did you care for a little dirt, said Lauren. It is the fastest route for certain, and already I worry that the servant may be discovered at any moment. They could not argue with that, and so together they stole back down the hallway. Once they were far enough away from the mess hall that they did not need to fear being heard, Lauren and Chet stooped together and lifted up a section of the iron grate. If lifted easily enough, though the iron ground on the stone with a noise that made them all nervous. In quickly, said Lauren, placing the grate to the side. Naya took off her sword, and holding it in one hand, she crawled into the channel. Jem was just behind her. Chet motioned to Lauren. I will go down first and lay on my back. Push the grate on top of me as quietly as you can, and I will do my best to hold it up while you crawl in. I can lower it down from below. In a moment they had done it. From beneath the grate, Chet held up one side of it so that it slanted, and Lauren From beneath the grate, Chet held up one side of it so that it slanted, and Lauren slid in beside him. As they pressed up against each other for a moment, she kissed his cheek. For luck, she said. He grinned and slowly lowered the grate, following her as she slithered along the channel. The water they crawled through was dirty, but it seemed an ordinary sort of dirt, from the earth and not from human use. Lauren was grateful for that. She had half feared that the trough might be a secondary method of disposing of the chamber pots. They came to the turn in the channel where it entered the mess hall. Naya paused for a moment and looked back to make sure they were with her. She placed 2 fingers to her lips for silence and then crawled forwards again, much more slowly this time. 1/2 pace at a time, they made their way through the room. Above them and to either side of them, the chatter of the soldiers seemed like a shouting throng, and they flinched at every raised voice and sudden laugh. Lauren's nerves nearly failed her every time she had to put one of her hands or her knees back down in the water, for she feared to make even the smallest splash. She looked up again, trying to guess how far they had gone. She might have been halfway through the room, or only 2 body lengths in. She could not be sure, and her view was blocked to the front by Naya and to the rear by Chet. Then a soldier crossed the room and stepped loudly on the grate just over Naya's head. Startled, the mystic dropped her sword in the water with a splash. Lauren looked up through the gate as they all went perfectly still. She counted the thudding of her heartbeats. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No one came into view. The sound of talking all around them did not pause for so much as a moment. A long, shuddering sigh escaped Lauren, though she fought to keep it silent. Naya looked back over her shoulder and grimaced. They went a little faster, no longer worried of the small little sloshing sounds that came from their progress. Soon they had crossed to the other side of the room, and then the channel took a turn down another hall. Still Naya pressed on until they were well away from the mess hall. Then the mystic woman flipped over and lifted the grate above herself, setting it gently on the stone to the side. She leapt from the channel and stole into the first room in the hall. Jem hopped out after her, but he waited for Lauren and Chet to emerge and replace the iron grate before the 3 of them followed Naya into the room. It was an office of some sort. There was a large ledger on the desk in the corner, though it was closed, and there were shelves of scrolls on the opposite wall. Thankfully, it was unoccupied, at least for the moment. This looks more like the sort of place we seek, said Naya. Yet Damaris is not here either, said Lauren. Let us move on, and quickly, for now I expect the place will be well populated. They began to steal from room to room, pausing at each one to ensure there was no one around to see them dashing by. Only when a hall was lined by doors that were all closed did they dare to run, and even then they did it at a crouching sort of shuffle to keep quiet. But they only found more offices and rooms of accounts and once a study with a fine upholstered chair and many books upon its shelves. They passed a grand staircase with banisters of wood embedded in the stone walls to either side and a fine rug that covered each step. The edges of the rug looked new, but the middle was worn and dirty. Jem stopped and stared at it for a moment, but Lauren took a shoulder and pushed him on. Finally, Naya rounded a corner and stopped dead before immediately backing up into Lauren again. They pressed themselves to the stone wall, and Naya met her gaze. She held up 2 fingers and then pointed to the sword at her hip. 2 guards, both armed, in the next hall. Lauren nodded and then slid around Naya to see for herself, slipping one eye around the corner. They stood together on the left side of the hallway, hands on the hilts of their weapons, staring straight ahead at the opposite wall. From within the room where they stood guard, Lauren could hear voices. Some were deep, some were shrill, but they did not speak over each other, and she could make out each of them with crystal clarity. And she heard one that she knew better than most in Underrealm, a powerful, velvety voice, almost melodic, rich with power and well used to it, the voice of Damaris of the family Yaren. She drew back again. "Come," she whispered, motioning towards an empty room they had passed. The door was open, but Lauren had seen that it had a bolt. They entered the room and closed the door behind them, and Lauren slid the bolt into place before turning to the others. "We have found her," she said. "Damaris is in that room. Now we must figure out how to remove her from this fortress, even if we must drag her screaming the whole way." Dun dun dun! You did come at the end again, KJ Jones. Sorry, I have to go have dinner with my family. Like a shithead. But after dinner, I do plan on coming back and working more. So you can catch me then. We have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 9 chapters left. And a lot of these are real short chapters. We're getting towards the end of the book, and things just go a little bit more pocketa. So I'm finishing this tonight. It's happening. I hope. I don't want to stay up late. I don't want to throw off my schedule. I'm on a schedule right now. I'm getting a shit ton of work hours in each day. I really like it. So I don't want to fuck it up. But yeah, we'll see. Anyway, thanks so much for coming and hanging out. And I hope to see y'all later this evening. But my wife is downstairs and calling for me because we need to go out to dinner. So thanks. See ya. Thanks for coming by. Good to see ya. And I'll catch you next time.